Okay, let's start with Darth Maul here. So I have just my basic Mail 01Z tool that I always start with, and I'm going to come in here really quickly and just start breaking some stuff up. I'm going to select the eyes with Control Shift and split them off. Now for the most part, I'm going to leave the body the way it is for now. I'm going to do most of the stuff after I pose him, but some of the things obviously I need to do with symmetry on. For example, I want to get that face looking a little bit more like the face we see here, right? So I'm just going to kind of give him a little bit more of a thin look. Got to get the eyes right off the bat. I want to get the eyes looking pretty good, as close as I can anyway, to what we see in that picture. Because again, most of what I'm doing here, he's a very straightforward character in terms of like his overall appearance and so forth. So for the most part, I think I can just pose him and then do most of the sculpting for the clothes and stuff. But let's do the actual painting and stuff like that before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's go here to the eyes. I'm going to go to Toy Plastic, MRGB. I'm going to kind of make this kind of a pinkish color for the eye color. I don't think there's a whole lot of white in there. And let's fill that. Go back to my paintbrush here, and just going to do going to have a little bit of white around the middle here. Turn off lazy mouse so I can get some of that in there. I just want to have a little bit of white there just so it's not 100% pink. That just felt weird. Now let's get the actual eyes, and the eyes are really cool. I'm going to drag out a hard edge circle, 100% RGB intensity, focal shift back down negative 100. Now again, this is not going to be, let's just turn on the paintbrush icons for him so it doesn't keep changing. It's not going to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of like give him some eyes and try not to make him look cockeyed. I'm going to end up obviously adjusting where he's looking and all that kind of stuff later on, but I just want to kind of get some eyes roughly in place. I'm going to start with black, even though I don't think there's really any black there at all. Now I'm going to go here to a to red. All right, here we go. It's going to have a little hint of black on the outside. I don't know, it just bothers me that I don't. I'm going to go back here to a nice fuzzy alpha now. Focal shift back up to 0. Throw some orange in there. Make sure it's actually bright orange. That's not very vibrant. Let's go get some actual vibrancy in there. There you go. Now we're going to go to yellow. Now I'm going to come over here in the middle, and I'm going to give myself a little alpha 15 so we get a little bit more of that sunbursty feel. I'm going to go to black. I'm going to bring my focal shift back down, and I might keep this same alpha on for the pupil. I just think it looks kind of cool. Okay, so now we got basically Darth Maul type eyes. That'll work for us, I think, for the most part. Again, obviously we need to adjust quite a bit about the face, but there we go. Okay, so now back to the face. Let's do a little bit of shaping here, but not much. Like I said, most of this I can kind of do after I pose him, but I do want to have a little bit of his little sneer going on here. It's going to get his nose adjusted a little bit here. Okay. Let's knock his neck in a little bit here. He's not quite so bulky. It's a little bit of a stylized feel. I'm going to kind of make him a little bit more maybe angular than he is in real life. Kind of a little bit more of the a little bit of the Clone Wars, not Clone Wars, the Rebels version of him, I think. A little bit of Clone Wars, I guess, is in there too. Want to kind of get a little bit of the mouth a little bit lower here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go right into kind of sculpting some refining the face a little bit. Again, most of the actual sculpting of the body and stuff like that, the clothing, all that stuff, that's going to happen after I pose him. I think that makes more sense. So I'm going to come here to I'm going to go to move topological really quickly, and just give myself a little separation between the upper and lower lips. It's really hard to do because it doesn't seem like it wants to get apart there, but something like that. Okay, now let's subdivide once and go to my damn standard brush and just start refining, not refining, but kind of carving in something that feels like it could be an ear, right? I just don't want to have too much of this smoothness here. I want to kind of start blocking in some indications of something, even though again we're still far away from anything real happening yet, but just want to kind of get rid of some of that kind of disconcerting smoothness that you get when you first subdivide. So I'm just using my damp standard brush to kind of carve in some indications here of where the face is going to be. But I don't want to get too crazy because again, I'm going to be doing some kind of, you know, this kind of interesting face paint thing he's got going on there. So I don't want to kind of like paint too much crazy detail, or not detail, but you know, like crazy shapes, because the shape that the paint needs to be able to go on there, and it's a little bit tricky. So just going to kind of start with some really basic kind of indications of where the face is going to be. Okay. Just trying to get that shape in here a little bit more. A lot of this is going to really come into play, I think, when we get the big outfit on, and obviously the paint job and the little horns he's got. So I'm just going to start throwing in some of this here. Really wish I can get that mouth apart, but I think we can probably do that in the pose. All right, so I'm just going to subdivide this once more, and with my damp standard brush with an Alt, I'm going to kind of like again bring up some of these little ridges here. Side here like this. Again, just trying to make it so that a lot of my face sculpting and stuff is going to come after he's posed, so I can break symmetry and that kind of stuff. But I just don't like the smoothness here. I'm kind of trying to find that little middle ground between having leave myself a little bit of room to paint without having to worry about getting, you know, working around too much bumps and stuff, and having him be essentially featureless because of when you subdivide, everything gets smoothed out. Right, so just trying to kind of, and I'm going to really push the expression, I think, hopefully anyway, after I've done the painting and stuff and posed him. But again, a lot of that isn't going to happen quite yet. Okay. So I'm going to subdivide a lot here, just because I want to get that facial paint happening. I just feel that it makes a lot of sense to do that sooner rather than later. So I'm going to fill in with a very dark gray. I never do fully black with a ZBrush. It's kind of hard to tell what's what. So now I'm going to start here with the masking. This is going to be a little bit weird, obviously, because, you know, it's a crazy face paint. So let's come in here and just start blocking that in. I'm going to go to my mask lasso here, and I'm going to just do a time lapse. It can be a little bit of a strange process here, but mostly I'm just using the mask lasso and the mask curve to kind of get a larger shape than I need, and then I kind of whittle away by kind of unmasking certain areas just to kind of get nice sharp edges. And, you know, don't forget, when you have a high-res mesh like this, using sharpen mask will give you nice sharp edges, and then you just fill it with the colors that you need. Okay, so this is mostly where I want to be. It's just not perfect, as you can see. Like, there's some little parts here where I should probably get a little bit more of that black on there. So let me just quickly do that. But mostly just a lot of you know, mask lasso and mask curve to get where I want to go. Let's keep going on with the things that symmetry are useful for. Let's get some horns on this little dude. So I'm just going to go to insert, because again, I've subdivided him obviously, so inserting objects is not going to work because I've subdivided. And actually what I can do is, while I have this guy at a very high resolution and that paint job, I can come down here just to kind of make sure everything's good, make a quick texture map for him, just to kind of make sure that in case, you know, I smooth it somehow or I mess it up, I have a texture map ready to go. I'm just going to turn this off, but I just wanted to have one ready to go before I forget. And now I'm just going to come here. He does have UVs, in case you're curious, so that does work okay. I'm going to go here with kind of like this general shape here. I'm going to swap this. I'm going to use this sphere. I'm going to remesh this sphere right off the bat with same but mirroring turned on, with symmetry turned on. I just want to get rid of that pole on top, so I can start working with this a little bit more easily here. So I'm going to kind of just basically just turn this roughly into the quickest horn that I can. I'm going to go here to my deformer, and I'm going to basically try to flatten this up a little bit. I know I could use flatten as well, but Just going to do this really fast. This is my side view here, so I'm going to pull this forward a little bit and start like that. Let's get my trim dynamic brush. Let's go to solo mode here so I can see what I'm doing a little better. Symmetry seems to have been turned off for a second. I thought I had it turned on, but that's okay. So there we go. It's going to just basically flatten this on the sides here. Make this look kind of rough. Obviously, like I don't want it to be too clean because they're horns and they're not hard. They're not like, you know, mechanical things. They're organic. So let's just make them look a little bit, you know, a little bit rough, a little bit creepy, and we have to kind of get the this little part here and then smooth that out. So I mask out a little corner point and then smooth out next to it. It kind of gives me a nice, sometimes it'll give me a nice little hard corner, and I find that works pretty well. And that's kind of coming here like that. Okay, it's just, I'm just trying to get a handle on what exactly it is I want this to look like, and just do something like that. So I think that works. I think here this has to kind of do a similar thing that's kind of like this, I think. And actually I think this whole thing has to kind of be more like this. And then I'm just going to flatten this bottom part here a little bit. I don't want to do that because flattening, when you have things like this, it just kind of messes it up a little bit. Okay, so let's try something like this. Go to my little gear again, deformer. Just gonna pull this out a little bit like that. I just want to get that nice, that kind of thick, but also kind of creepily bendy thing happening here. Gonna come here with my trim dynamic again, which again, symmetry just keeps turning off. I don't know if I'm hitting it or if using a deformer turns it off. I don't know, but I want this to feel like it's just kind of like a bony type thing. I think that'll work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here really fast again, just because I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to go UV map. I'm going to go a Z plugin here and just do a real quick unwrap. I don't really care how it looks. I just want to have UVs for this guy. And I'm just going to do a really quick, like super fast, horrible paint job just to kind of get something on there. So I'm just going to kind of sample this color, go a little bit lighter, hit up top here, go a little bit darker, make the paint mode multiply, and just kind of like throw a little bit of that on there. Go back to this little guy and just knock it back, and maybe I'll turn down the intensity a little bit so I just get a little bit more, but I just want to have a little bit of something on there just so it doesn't seem quite so generic, right? So now I have to put the horns where they need to go. So he's got one right smack dab in the middle of his forehead. Don't rotate. Now again, like I made these lines, these painted lines, probably a little too hard edged, too sharp, but I'm okay with it. And I'm looking at some images here. So yeah, it looks like, let's just grab this guy, and I'm going to duplicate this really fast. Turn off symmetry, that way I can just do it on one side, and then I'll just mirror it over. These little black spots here are where the horns go on the front. And then looking at the figure I have here, I have a little Disney Infinity figure. I don't know whether that's considered, you know, definitive or not, but or infinitive. But I'm going to use that and as a guide. And the other ones here are just kind of on the back of the head is essentially just pure black. That face paint is just in the front. So I'm going to take that as a guide that I don't need to worry about trying to paint crazy stuff on the back of the head like this. And I think here maybe I'm going to bring this down. Oh, jeepers! Let's smash that one out. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit here on the side of his head, so you get this a little bit more of a staggered effect here. Okay, you can see here on the head, somewhere in the back, somehow I got a little bit of that, red paint. So let's make sure I fix that. All right, so now I'm going back to my little horns here. Let's go to mirror, merge into one subtool. Heck yes. And now I want to get the make sure I'm going to turn symmetry back on again, and I might need to kind of just do a little bit of just do a little bit of adjustment here to these guys. Okay, now go back to this front one and just turn off symmetry for a second. Control will drag out a copy because there is a horn on the back of his head as well. Okay, and there's also, I think, I'm trying to think of whether or not this, I feel like this is almost visible though from the front, so I might need to bring it up like this. All right, and there's also two little ones on the side, on his temples, and I did not realize that was the case before. I've done a Darth Maul before, and I'm pretty sure I did not give him little horns on the sides of his temples, so my bad. But they're very, very small, comparatively speaking anyway, and I think they kind of go kind of like, let's see how they look. Yeah, okay. I think they kind of point up, kind of like that. So I'm just going to kind of bring them down like this and just put them right where they go in that picture there. I did not, I never noticed them, so they were really subtle apparently, and I'm going to make them even more subtle by doing a little extra darkness on there. Okay, there we go. Clear them out. Now I have all my horns. Let's come back here and grab my top horns. Let's just merge them all down. There's no reason why to have them be anything different. All right, dude's got some horns. Nice. Now again, obviously, you know, given the nature of this mesh, it's very cartoony. He has some rather large eyes, so I'm just going to kind of try to ameliorate that a little bit just by kind of bringing the lower lids up just a touch. He doesn't really even have much in the way of eyelids. Like, again, this is a very cartoony head, and I did not do an unbelievable job of making it less so. But now we have, again, like the face is painted. Not a whole lot more I'm going to do at this early stage, but I am going to go back down a little bit and just do a little bit of shaping of the legs. He's got some good baggy clothes and stuff down there. So again, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a head start, and with my inflate brush basically, and just kind of just make it look like he's got kind of those billowy pants here. He's got boots, obviously. So, and again, this is one of those things where it would make sense probably to do the boots before I break symmetry. But again, I'm going to put him in kind of a bendy pose, and if I make one boot, I can just mirror it and just pop it in place. Doesn't really bother me. I kind of just prefer to get him in his pose as quickly as I can, so I can start getting a feel for the character. Because right now, I don't really have that feel yet. Now again, I'm not making him jacked. He's got very billowy sleeves, so I'm just masking out the forearms and then inflating the arms around that. He doesn't have quite so narrow a waist as this guy did, so I'm just going to kind of give myself a little more like that. Okay, just going to go back up here to the face again and just try and do a little more adjustment to the eye openings here, because they really were just very, very large and not really what I was going for. So I'm just going to kind of bring them together a little bit here. And go back up now. You can see our paint jobs. See if it's still okay, and I think it'll work. So again, he's not in any way ready to go, but that's kind of what I was going for in terms of trying to get this guy a little bit less, I should say, too thin. I don't want them to be too puffy here yet, because again, I have to pose him. Now, I'm going to pose him by bringing him into Maya, because I have a rig set up for this basic mesh. Posing him using Transpose Master, of course, is always an option, and that's and if you're not necessarily a guy with not necessarily someone with the patience to go into, or if you don't feel like going to kind of like rigging a character and all that kind of stuff, totally understandable, and you can pose him here. I like to pose him in Maya just because I have a little bit more flexibility, so I'm going to take him into Maya really fast and do some posing. Okay, so here I am in Maya. I bound him to a basic rig that doesn't do a whole lot, but it just allows me to kind of practice different poses and kind of make slight adjustments without 1,000 different masks and rotations. So that's pretty much it. Let's go back into ZBrush. So this is the pose I settled on. Again, I'm going to do quite a bit of breaking up and adjustments here. Obviously, this is very, very rough right now. So what I want to do now, obviously I need to put the, the lightsaber here to make one. But let's break him up into the parts. So I have him at as low as subdivision level here. And let's hit Shift F so I can see my poly frame. So I want to start breaking them up into the parts that he needs to be in. And what I'm going to do is, because he's got so many subdivision levels here, I'm actually going to duplicate him and kind of like just, instead of splitting things off, which I think tends to lose our UVs, I'm just going to start kind of basically just keeping the parts that I want for, say, the boots, and then just deleting what's left. And I think that deleting hidden is not the same thing as splitting things off. I think you tend to get like a somewhat better result when it comes to UVs. I could be wrong, but anyway, I want to keep these, so I'm going to delete hidden, and these will be my boots. Now there's no reason for me to keep the subdivision levels on the boots because there's nothing good about them anyway, and now that I do this, I'm going to end up losing my UVs anyway, but that's okay. I'm just going to give myself the boots here and do a kind of a similar thing with most of this here. So I'm going to rename this boots. This is going to be a very quick process here. I am going to kind of just duplicate this. One of these things is going to be the head, and the head is really the only place that I really need to make sure I retain the different subdivision levels, right? So this is the original body here. I'm going to go to solo mode. If I go to my poly frame, you can see this is the part that I'm going to keep, basically from the neck down. So I'm just going to isolate the neck part here eventually. There you go. And then just, you know, keep everything else as well. Just trying to get rid of that. There you go. So now I'm going to delete hidden. This is the head that I'm going to keep, and this will retain all the subdivision levels, right? So that's the main thing here, because I do want to be able to keep all the paint on that on the face there. All right, something like that. Okay. So now for the rest of the body here, this guy here, I can actually just pretty much delete the higher subdivision levels and just go with what I have here. So let's go ahead and break him up into the gloves, which is going to be roughly right here. I'm going to make them probably a little longer than this, but I want to kind of retain a little bit of the arm so that, you know, I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to split. So I'm going to split hidden. So now it's going to be its own thing. Let's do the same thing with here. And again, this is how I like to work. I like to kind of basically remove, put them in a pose and then split them into parts. Same idea here. We have the boots already with this guy, so we don't need to worry about those. If I get out of solo mode, you can see here, if I just smooth this down, that's where the boots end up. So we can just go ahead and get rid of those. I think if I were to smooth this down, you'll see that's where the boots end right there. So let's get rid of those as well. All right. So again, this time I can just delete hidden because the boots have already been, you know, set off. And that's, again, torso and legs. It's good to have them separated. He's going to have that. He has that rather thick belt that will do a good job of separating the torso from the lower body. So I don't need to worry too much about that. I'll hit Control W on this to make it its own poly group. And I'm going to hide. Now the arms, I'm fairly sure that I'm going to end up splitting the arms off from the torso as well, because again, there are seams there, and it's easier to kind of like sculpt it without having to worry about it. But for now, I'm going to see maybe if I can just leave it like this. So I'm going to split hidden here. So we have the torso, and now let's go here to the legs. Again, we don't need the head, we already have the head, right? So we can just go ahead and delete hidden here. Really quickly going to come in here with my Z modeler brush and close these holes up. I'm just going to Control Shift Tap to isolate these poly groups here. Do a quick auto group so that they're all separate poly groups here. So when I do redo my UVs, for example, I don't have to worry about anything there. Take a look here, same idea. Let's isolate these. I'll just hit Control W, make them their own poly groups. And let's go here to the torso, and let's close those up. You know how ZBrush does not like open holes, so just going to close these up so it doesn't kind of, you know, so it never acts weird whenever I try to smooth or subdivide. And Just going to isolate these guys. Control W. There we go. Now I'm not gonna close the holes on the head, just because again you can't really close holes when you have subdivision levels on there, and so I'm not going to worry too much about that. But I do just want to close these holes up so that I can start working on these different body parts. Oops, let's get a solo mode here. I was on the wrong thing. Let's go to the gloves, close those up, isolate, polygroup, Control W. Okay, so now we have everything essentially ready to go here. I can just do a quick little inflate here on the gloves just to kind of make them stand out beyond the sleeve. And now I'm going to kind of actually pull them up a little bit, because I kind of want them to be a little bit bigger than they were. Like I said, I just didn't want to have it cut like exactly where the arm, and I wanted to have some overlap. I didn't want to have to worry about there being a gap at all. So that's all. And again, what I'm going to do here is with this little poly group here, I'm just going to go to my move tool and just flatten it by scaling it together like this. That way I can just, if I need to, I can add another edge loop just to kind of, you know, fill that out, and I can just keep the gloves nice and big there, because they are pretty substantial in the on the outfit here, right? So I'm just going through these different objects here, because when you fill close these holes, they have white as the color, which is obviously not what we're going for. So I'm just going to inflate that a little bit, get my move brush, and again just make this a little bit bigger so it kind of takes up more of the forearm. Okay, let's go to the boots and kind of do the same thing here. I'm going to do a little inflate just to make them a little bit bigger. I don't really have the boots done yet. Obviously, he's got some. His boots are actually fairly low, I think, on his leg. So I'm not going to kind of make them any taller like I did, any longer like I did with the gloves. The boots are actually not very tall. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Obviously, we need to actually make them boots. Right now, they look like socks, which is never good, and that's going to be, you know, kind of an important part of the process later on. But for now, I just want to have them a little bit bigger than that. And now, again, it's going to be mostly the pants. The pants have a little bit more of a bagginess to them. Do I fill these? No, let's make sure I fill them with the right color. And again, that's for me anyway. I always want to feel like the silhouette makes sense before I start doing anything else. So I want this to kind of drape down, so it's going to be a little more down here. All right, so I almost want this to be like straight here and then drapey down here, because it's just kind of where you know, gravity would be pulling it, I imagine. Right, just trying to get a little bit of that in there. Let's kind of do a little bit of the, because when I twisted the torso, obviously you're going to get a little bit of crunching and stuff like that. So just trying to kind of get that shape the way I like it. But I think that this is something that we can work with. Let's go back to the legs here. Knock that down a little bit. Got my move brush here, but I want this to really be kind of, you know, a little bit more drapey in there. Give him a little more of a hamstring. He doesn't really have much in the way of leg muscles right now, but all right. And I also strange, but now I want to kind of get this, and I want this to kind of, I want to have a bit of a bend in this leg, like this. I think on this leg here, you know, one thing you want to remember too is when you pose things, you want to turn symmetry off. A lot of times symmetry is still on, just because, you know, it was originally symmetrical, so you have symmetry on. So just want to kind of get a little bit more of a drape there. And let's go to the legs here and do a similar thing. I'm going to go to my mask lasso, mask off the top, mask off the bottom, do a little smoothing there just to kind of push that back. So I'm just doing a kind of a quick shaping here, just to kind of get the silhouette a little bit closer to where I feel comfortable. Now a lot of this isn't even going to be seen, right? Because he's going to be wearing that he has that outfit on, and that's one of the things that I would like to do right off the bat here. Is kind of give him the main things that we need. So let's give him the cloak first. We'll call it a cloak. I don't know what it is. It's a thing. It's a thing that he wears. It's like a jacket, right? So let's do that because it's going to do a lot of the work for us in terms of breaking up the silhouette here. So let's go here to the torso, which I'm going to rename, and let's duplicate that torso. So now the torso needs to basically just have this part. I'm going to increase the visibility of a little bit here, and then delete hidden. And I don't need this little ring at the bottom or at the top, so I can get delete hidden as well. I want to keep these little parts here. So really quickly, I'm going to my Z modeler brush and hover over a point and do a stitch to midpoint and just kind of stitch these parts together. I wanted to have a little bit more substance in the shoulder area than I was getting, so let's just stitch these 2 points. All right, and now this is a little bit weird, right? So I'm just going to mask that out, invert that mask, and do a quick little polish by features to kind of clean it up a little bit, just to kind of push that stuff apart. All right. Anyway, Control W, make it all one group. So now I want to turn this into that jacket. So I need to get rid of stuff in the middle here. So let's see if I can do that. Let's see if I can use a poly loop. I'm not sure. I'm going to go to poly group, poly loop in my Z modeler brush. Yeah, that'll work just fine. So I can just kind of get rid of those two, right? So Control Shift Tap to get rid of that. Delete hidden. And again, same thing here. I don't need to do this, but it's going to bother me. I don't like these faces here. So I'm going to go to delete a single poly and get rid of those two. I'll go back to something else. So I don't delete anything else. But now I want to sew these two together. Because that little, come on, man. That little, there you go. That little triangle is just not doing me any favors. All right. So now I have it open here. Right. I can probably grab this and push this back. I want this to obviously be more open, like it's just kind of like a something like this, I think. You know what? Let's leave it the way that it was. I want this to be open though, so I forgot what I was doing. So let's grab the bottom part here. Let's get out of solo mode for a second. Invert that bottom part. Use my move tool, and actually, I'm just going to scale this down like this, and then pull this down a little bit. Scale it out. Okay, and then keep my mask on and get my move brush. And actually, just mask out half of this part. Get my move brush and put this roughly where I would like it to go. This is going to look terrible for a little bit because one is low res, and two, well, it's low res. And that's mostly it, honestly. But I'm going to mask out this little part, invert that mask, and put this. And again, even at this low res though, like I'm trying to think of how, jeepers, trying to think of how this will flow as cloth. Because he's in kind of a dynamic pose-ish, right? So I want this to kind of be already in that zone. I'm going to come here to masking and mask by feature. I'm going to mask the border. Then just do a quick polish by feature just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. But not a whole lot. It's not going to do a whole lot there. But I can get a little bit of that going on here. Okay. And I think it's going to be up a little bit like this. Okay. Do a quick little inflate of the whole thing. Like that. Pull this part down a little bit here. And in the back, I'm going to pull this down. We're really fast about this. Now I'm going to check it and look at this solo wise. Let's see what happens if I remesh this the same. Sometimes when it's low res, you get some really weird stuff happening. I'll remesh it a second time to see if that helps. But you get some weird little triangle, not triangles, but diamonds. It's just a little bit weird sometimes. Sometimes it works. If I come over here to geometry, turn off smooth and divide once, and then delete lower, and then remesh. Sometimes you get better results. I think I did here too. So yeah. So don't. I think sometimes when things are really low res, it's not a bad idea to give it one subdivision without a smooth, so that way it doesn't kind of get all goofy, and then you can get some. And then you remesh, and it gets a lot better. So that's just one little thing that I've found works because it seems like whenever I had issues with remeshing, it was always like a very low res mesh like this, where I kind of like, you know, created it from an existing mesh. So as you can see here, now I got this little part here, and again, like little weird little things here, like this little triangle. What on earth does this triangle actually think it's doing? So I'm going to go back to my Z-Mother brush, and I'm going to delete that. Boom. Because it literally serves no point whatsoever. So just grab my move brush and just pull this down, and then we're going to do, right? So there we go. So now we have basically the jacket that we need. There is a belt that is going to be cinched to, so I need to kind of make sure I keep that in mind, that there is going to be a part here where it's cinched in. And that's kind of a cool part, because then we can kind of get cool little folds where it's being cinched in, right? So let it stay a little bit like this. Again, I want the jacket to do the work of the silhouette. So if the torso underneath starts poking through, if I'm happier with the way the jacket looks, I'll just push the torso in, who cares? So now I'm just going to make sure I fill that with a color, and let's just put the belt where it needs to be. So again, I just want to kind of just make this feel a little bit cooler here. Let's bring this out. Okay, just want this to kind of feel like it's a little bit more like this, a little bit more like cloth flying and stuff, because, you know, why not? All right, here we go. So let's hit 9. Whenever you do something, like hit 9, because you want to start getting paranoid. So this is going to be the jacket. Let's rename this jacket, and let's bring in a cylinder, and let's just scale this down. This is going to be, I'm going to let this be a different color just for now so I can see it better. This is a very thick belt that he has, right? So I want this to kind of be somewhat substantial in terms of what we're actually getting from this. And again, it's a belt, it's a cloth belt, so it's not necessarily going to be 100% unchanging in terms of shape. But by the same token, you kind of want to make a decision about what's going to do most of the what's the boss here? Is it the belt or is it the torso, right? How much of this belt needs to change to conform to the torso, and how much does it make more sense just to make the torso conform to the belt, right? Because, you know, I always have that issue of kind of uncertainty when I have something like a belt or a sash or something like this. I'm like, well, it doesn't quite fit yet, so I have to adjust the belt. Well, maybe don't adjust the belt, maybe adjust the stuff going into the belt, right? So just kind of be aware of the fact that, you know, you have that option of adjusting the way things look from either direction, from the direction of the new thing you're just adding, or the existing thing. Now I'm going to take a look here at this, and I want this to be it has got like some folds in it, right? So I'm going to come right here with my Z-Mother. I'm going to go to polygroup, polyloop. I'm going to basically polygroup a couple rows here. I want to find out which one makes the most sense. I think these two make the most sense, because I'm going to be pushing those in as kind of folds. And I think maybe it's going to be this one and this one. There we go. Okay, so that way I can see what's what. So this is where I want the belt to be. Okay, so everything else now has to conform to that. So I'll go back to the jacket, for example, and, you know, I can push this part in so that it kind of conforms to the belt. I have to get the jacket thickness, of course, but I figured I'd wait until after. Doing all the main shaping before you do that, because, you know, sculpting something with thickness, it's more of a pain. The only issue is with this is that you can't smooth when you have an open edge like this, at least not without using one of those special smoothing brushes, which I don't really feel like doing. So I'm just going to kind of, like, you know, do the best I can right now to make it conform without over relying on things like smoothing. And again, I can go back to the torso if I need to and just push it in, because, you know, as long as the overall shape is what I want of the jacket, which is the outward, you know, indicator of shape, then who cares what the inward, you know, about the inward indicator of shape, right? So, because it's not really an indicator, it's just hanging out. All right. So again, you can decide. I can decide for myself how much of this I want to be a jacket. I think it's pretty much what I think he has pretty much a jacket. He's got kind of a jacket, and he's got like a seamed jacket underneath, it seems like. So like he's got some layers is what I'm saying, and we have to kind of decide for ourselves where the layers have to, where the layers are going to show. The weird thing about this is this little collar right here. So I'm just going to mask that out, invert that, and do a quick polish by features just to kind of smooth that out. Okay, so there we go. So we got that. Now let's go back to the belt and fill it with that color so it stays correct. And again, we can come in here and adjust this as much as we need to, but just know that after you do that, you're going to need to adjust everything that is conforming to it, because the belt is kind of in charge at this point. So something like this. Let's go back to my belt. And now you can, again, it's tempting to not do this quite yet, to add those little indentations, but I don't think I'm going to get too worried about changing things over and over again. So I can go ahead to these edges here. Let's go to my Z modeler brush. Let's make sure I hover over here and insert an edge on either side of here, because again, when you smooth and subdivide things, you want to have edges that are nice and clean, and if that edge wasn't there, it would get too round. Let's go here and extrude the polygroup all and just extrude that in. Right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a couple edge loops on the inside here, again, just to kind of keep that from getting too soft. I don't want it to be too hard. It's not metal, obviously, it's cloth, but I want it to be somewhat sharp. I'm going to go to a bevel and bevel this edge a little bit here, and bevel basically all of these edges here as well. So now if I smooth this with the dynamic subdivision level, you see we get that that looking kind of like that, right? Now that's a little wide, if I'm being honest. So I might just go to my inflate brush and just kind of inflate this a little bit so that they kind of just come together and feel more like, like that. So if I were to smooth that, it would kind of spread back out a little bit, which is kind of good too. Okay, I'm gonna scale it in a little bit. There you go. So I think that's a fine starting point. Again, like I said, we're going through this in 2 hours here, so we're not going to get overly crazy about this. But I think by doing that, I think that we're in decent shape. Now, there are a couple other little parts coming through here. He's got like 2 more again, there's components of different robes and shirts. Kind of hard to tell exactly exactly what these components are, but they're part of the outfit in some form or other, right? So let's see here. So let's kind of really quickly I'm going to insert. I'm just going to do a couple cubes. So I'm going to insert a cube. Go to my move tool. I'm going to get Shift F so you can see it. So I'm going to go to my polycube here because I want to get back to a normal cube without the pole at the top. The poles at the top are ridiculous. I don't know why they even have them. I'm going to give myself a few more vertical subdivision levels, and then we'll just crunch this down like this, scale it up like this, something like this, right? I'm going to go to my deformer and just taper it a little bit at the top. From left to right. I'm not using the taper deformer because tapers it in every direction, even though here I go to taper in that direction as well. Who cares? All right, so I got this little guy, and let's go ahead and put this in position. So I'm going to scale this down and figure out exactly where it needs to go. Now again, there are 2 of these. Obviously, it's like, left and right. So what I'm going to do really is duplicate this before I start getting too crazy, because I'm going to start doing the bend deformer, and bend deformers, of course, are going to deform it. So before I do that, let's give myself a couple little edge loops here. Again, just to, I'm going to bevel this one and this one. And then I'm going to use my insert edge loop brush to kind of add one here and here and here and up here, just to kind of keep those edges from getting too goofy. I'll duplicate that because now that I've done that, I don't want to have to do it again. So there we go. I'm going to hide one of those guys. This little one, I'm just going to do a quick extrude of these poly groups. So extrude that in a little bit, in a little bit, insert. This is one of those things, again, I probably should have done ahead of time. Sometimes I'm not very bright, just letting you know. So it's going to duplicate this again because I'm dumb. So now I've duplicated them twice. Okay, great. Because now again, if I were to smooth this, you see this what I get, right? And of course I can smooth this some more, but this is what I want. So now I'm going to go to my move tool. I'm going to go to my gear and go to bend curve. I'm going to give myself just 3. I'm going to put this where it needs to go. I'm going to pop that right in here. Maybe do a little twisties. Bring this up. Let's see what the best look is for this. I think that looks pretty good like that. I'm going to kind of scale this one in a little bit here. Scale this one out a little bit, maybe. Look at my side view here, make sure it makes sense that way as well. Get that in there. I'm going to make sure it kind of fits, kind of nestles in there. Something like that. I believe, maybe I want to do it like this. Yeah, I think I want it to go in that direction, because he's leaning this direction, so everything should be dragging back the other direction like that. Okay, go to my gear, hit accept. Make sure I fill it with that color, because I don't think it was filled. Same idea with this one, let's fill that. And let's do the similar thing. This one's going to be over here. Let's go back to this one for a second, and just, this is not going to be elegant, but I want to just widen it a touch. The same thing here, I'm going to widen this a touch. Alright, let's go here to my bend curve again, and let's bring this here. Bring this in there, scale it down a little bit. Bring it like this. Kind of changing my mind as I go in terms of where I want this to be. I think this is making some sense now. Yeah, I think that works. Go here and hit accept. All right. So now we have our little sashy parts here. I don't know what they are. They're again, I think they're part of his jacket or his vest. One of those pieces. I don't know, he's got a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's got a complex outfit. Okay. Let D to kind of show it and then apply it. So I can do a little smoothing of this, not have to worry too much about it, and make it a little bit more flexible. Same idea here. D for dynamic, apply it. So I can smooth it out a little bit if I need to. Right. Like that. Okay. So there we go. So now we got the sashes, we got the jacket roughed in. And I think for the most part, because the jacket is pretty much where it needs to be, I don't think we need to worry too much about giving it thickness now. Let's push this down, I think, actually. I'm going to go to my snake hook brush, because I think snake hook does a good job of like making things move almost like elastically. And I think that's actually kind of cool like that. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, yeah, this might not go well when we do it. We give it some thickness, but we'll see. So let's give it some thickness. Let's see exactly what we did here. Let's bring this in a little bit more. All right. So let's come up here now, and before we do that, let's actually close off. I don't think this is a vest. I don't think this is a vest. I think this is a jacket, but I could be wrong. So the question is it a jacket that kind of connects with the sleeves, or is it a separate piece? I'm just actually going to keep it like a separate piece. So I'm going to come up here now to Geometry, Dynamic Subdivision, turn on Dynamic Subdiv, and then give myself some thickness here. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks like it works pretty well. Let's come up here and give myself a little bit of this. Let's go to my smooth subdivision. Let's give it 0, just so I can get the shape the way I want it first, because I don't want to get too puffy. Right, just making quick little adjustments to the overall shape here, but not a whole lot. I think that's, for the most part, I think we can work with this. Oops. Okay, let's give ourselves 1 or 2 levels of thickness of subdivision here, so give it a little bit smoother. So let's go ahead and turn off the thickness for a second. Okay, so yeah, I think makes the most sense is to give ourselves some thickness. See, the thing is, if you give yourself some thickness and subdivision levels, I think it does a better job of not kind of smoothing out the edges too much. So I think that looks okay. Let's hit apply. Boom. All right, so now this part is looking pretty good. Let's see if I can reconstruct. I can't reconstruct the subdivision level, so this is pretty much where we are, which is fine. I can now just kind of like come in here and just like start thinking about exactly where the vertical folds are in this, because I think that's pretty much how this goes, right? So even though we're low res here, I'm just kind of blocking in that so that when I do subdivide it, it'll, you know, let's make sure I turn on the smooth modifier when I subdivide, because I think I had it turned off. But you can see how it's kind of where we're headed with this. Is what, you know, I'm going to kind of do some vertical folds to kind of get that look, right? And then for the body here, I'm going to kind of make sure this is going to kind of pretty much be right in line with it. Like the idea here is probably to make it so you can't really tell whether it's a vest or a jacket, because I can't tell if it's a vest or a jacket. But I think for the most part here, you can see where we're headed with this. What I want to do is block out the torso, and I also want to get the hands, because the hands are bothering me. Like, again, the hands are not they're very thin. They look very kind of like, you know, silly in terms of the fingers. But I also want to make sure that the torso, that the neck is covered, because you can see here, if I got a poly frame, I want the neck to kind of be part, you know, to kind of go into a shirt in some way. And I think what we want to do here is to give this guy kind of a collar. So what I'm going to do is, let's isolate this part here. Let's just do a quick auto group, because I want to be able to isolate just the top. And I get my move tool and alt tap to kind of pop it right there. And I want this to be nice and flat. So I'm going to kind of like reorient this tool really fast and then just scale it down in the vertical. So we have something like this. And now I want to make a collar. I can also come in here with my Z modeler and insert an edge loop or so that it looks a little bit better. And let's see if I can just actually get rid of this entirely. And see if I can add a new one with closed, because that way, if I do that, theoretically anyway, I should be able to get more equidistant edge loops here, which is what I want. So now, isolate this, make it one poly group. I'm going to do is go to my select lasso here, and I'm going to remove these guys here, and I want to see where the front is going to be. So it's going to be right about there, so I'm going to kind of get rid of that as well. So this is what I want. I want this to be its own poly group. I'm going to add, hit Control W. I'm going to add an edge loop add an edge loop right here. Okay, I'm going to slide, I should say, yeah, slide this edge loop out a little bit, because I want these two to be their own poly group. This is going to be the collar. So I'm just going to isolate all this, Control W, and now I just come here and extrude this poly group up. All right, that's going to give me a collar that I can mess with a little bit here. I want the neck to be, obviously, you know, to have a place to go. Now this looks a little goofy at the moment because it's very blocky. It's okay. Once we subdivide and stuff like that, it's going to be fine. I'm going to add a couple edge loops here. Now if I, you know, you can see here, now I got a collar, right? It's just a nice little way to separate the head from the body. All right, so we've got the jacket and the torso stuff going on. We've got to do a little bit more work now on the actual shirt and the gloves. All right, so we're going to work on the sleeves and the hands now. So I'm going to focus on the hands because they're driving me crazy. So let's take a look up here. And what I tend to do is I'm going to make them all one poly group, and I'm going to just isolate the fingers as their own poly groups. That way I can easily work on them, you know, separately, right? So I'm just going to come up here to these little fingers with my Z modeler brush and do a quick little poly loop to kind of get these individual loops here, like the topmost loops as I can get. And this could be a little bit tricky because the thumb is in the way, so let's get that, and the same thing right here. Now I'm going to Control Shift click to isolate these, and then do an auto group. Okay, then I'm just going to Control Shift X to grow the visibility, and I hit auto group again. Now I can hide the thumb because the thumb is pretty much ready to go. And now I'm going to go this way and Control Shift S to shrink it so I can see where the fingers end. Now once again, Control auto group. So now I can work on the individual fingers. And what I want to do first, before I start sculpting and subdividing, is I want to kind of give myself a couple of extra edge loops around the knuckles, just because I want them to kind of stay a little bit sharper when I subdivide. So this is something I started doing somewhat recently, just because I felt like once I subdivided, I get some extra points. So sculpting on the fingers, they got even more, like floppy looking. So I just added a couple edge loops here to kind of retain some of that hard edge that you would get at the knuckle, maybe that I like anyway. So I just do a little bit of this, right? And now I can work on this, the way I want to. I'm going to add a little edge loop there. Okay, so let's go back here now, and I'm going to Control D just once, and you can see how that kind of keeps this somewhat, in place. Now I'm going to isolate individual fingers here, and this is one of those things where obviously you don't need to see every single step here. I'm probably going to do a little time lapse here, but I'm going to come in here and give the knuckles themselves a little bit of an inflate. Not the knuckles, the pads of the fingers, a little bit of an inflate. And depending on how much I want this to kind of be stylized, or in terms of or how angular I want them to be, I might do something like, mask out the knuckle and smooth down to kind of get that nice little dip in between. So I'll mask out both knuckles and just do a little smooth, like that, just to kind of get myself, those fingers looking a little bit more the way I want them to. And I can also, just, if I also want to, I can just come here and just give them a little bit of a widening, so that they kind of fill up the little thing, right? So I'm just going to do that for a bunch of these guys really fast here. So I'll do another one. A little inflate underneath to kind of bring in the pads of the fingers. This could be a little bit tricky because I don't want to inflate everything here, but inflate the middle part first, and then get here. Again, it's not really that important at this point because the lightsaber is going to be there, right? But which we still have to make, obviously. But it's going to do a little bit of a masking of the knuckles, and just kind of get a little bit of a shape there. Right. Again, now we're going to do the rest of these. All right, so we got them blocked in. Let's work on the arms now, the torso part. So let's go to the torso. This is this guy right here. We got the collar looking decent. So everything else is here. Let's just go ahead and subdivide this. So we'll just go Control D. And just like before, kind of with the hand, I want to come in here and just kind of start adding the main bendy parts. I know it's a complex term, it's a fancy term, but the parts where I want to have kind of a sharp indication of, say, the elbow and that kind of a thing. And just kind of come in here and mask out this little area and just kind of pull that part out. I want this to kind of be hanging down like this, right? Because again, gravity and such. And let's kind of carve in a little bit here. So I just want to kind of make it the fold do a lot of the work here, kind of like the saying, okay, here's where the arm, here's the arm's going to change. And I'm going to come here with my damp thinner brush, just kind of give an indication that there's an arm underneath here. Going to knock some of the sleeve back here, just because Again, it's a baggy. It's not baggy, but it's kind of a loose fitting shirt. So it's not going to be like, you know, showing every single muscle here. So kind of carve in a little bit here. Okay, and look at solo mode for a second so I can kind of get in here. Because again, this is a little bit weird. Let's isolate this. I'm going to kind of like grow this selection and then mask it. That way I can kind of smooth the rest of this down without having to worry about messing up the shirt, the elbow I should say. All right, so something like that. Just want to kind of get a little bit more of a definition there where the kind of the sleeve comes down. Same idea up here. Again, I'm going to be kind of fast about this. I'm kind of bring this back. I'm just trying to think of the cloth here. So it's going to be kind of, it's not going to be round up top here. It's going to be somewhat flat, I think. All right. So I sand and brush and just kind of pull out some cloth down here. Same idea, right? Just trying to think about the way the cloth is going to be stretching as he's doing this with his arm. There's not much to go with right now because it's still a little bit too blocky, but we can kind of just start thinking about where the elbow is going to be and where the cloth would fold in that regard, right? Something like so. Take a look at the torso here. Same idea. Again, still not a lot of points here, so not much is going to happen, especially on the torso, but just want to kind of get a little bit of that here, kind of hang over the belt a little bit. I'm going to go to the jacket really fast and just nudge that part out and then tuck it in. We'll come back with the folds and stuff eventually, but I'm just trying to kind of get everything roughly set up here. So I'm going to subdivide one more time, and I'm going to go to my standard brush really fast, just regular old standard brush, and just come in here and just like start giving some indications of where I want to have some cloth happening, but not much. They're really great fold brushes, mostly from I think Pablo Munoz Gomez, who has just amazing cloth brushes, and those are the ones I'm going to try and use when it comes to actually sculpting the folds or putting those folds in. But just want to start giving myself kind of a guide as to where some of this is going to where some of this is going to go. Didn't like that. Okay, there we go. That's fine. All right. So now we got the shirt again roughly blocked in. We have the gloves. Let's go to the pants here. Not much to worry about the pants really, probably. Just gonna subdivide them once. Take a look at where we are with these. And again, I'm just gonna start with the standard brush here just for now, just to kind of give myself the vaguest indication of where I'm going to be doing some sculpting of folds and stuff like that. So, you know, just to kind of start making some headway in that area. It's in my mind really it's just the fact that it's been started is enough sometimes to kind of say, okay, good, I can come back and add to this. I'm just going to pull out some. I have my damn standard brush, but I'm using the Alt key to get nice little pull out folds. Standard brush to kind of pull out some of this here. Again, this is just indications at this point. All right. Subdivide once more to see how that's looking. I think we can go with that. All right, so now I want to kind of. I knew I have to do the boots, and I'm putting off doing the boots because I don't want to do the boots, but I'm going to have to do the boots eventually. But what I want to do first is I want to get those teeth in there, because right now, if I go to the face, you can see I kind of have the mouth kind of open. I'm going to hold down Shift and turn off RGB just for a second so I can smooth out the corners of the mouth without messing up the paint. But you can see here, it's kind of open. He's going to have gritted teeth, so I don't need to see like the inside of his mouth necessarily. But I do want to get some teeth in there, so that's what I'm going to be doing here. I'm just going to bring up the eyelid just a little bit here. Come back to sculpt this a little bit more later, but all right. So let's get those teeth in there, and then we'll get more of a snarl. So I'm just going to come into my subtool palette and just insert any shape. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to be swapping it out for teeth. I have in my Lightbox an insert brush that inserts sets of teeth. I'm sure you can get that online. I'm sure that's where I got it. But I'm just going to go here to my insert brushes, and I'm going to find my teeth, my toothbrush, so to speak. And I'm going to find top, teeth, and gums. I'm going to go to my move tool and then just tap on that. It'll swap it right out for that, my transpose tool. And let's just go ahead and put that here. Now I'm going to just drag out a copy of this, and then with the control key, and then make it the bottom teeth and gums, so that I can move them at the same time, right? Because I want these teeth to be kind of gridded together. So it makes sense that they should be kind of already roughly in place before I put them there. So let's go ahead and center this. Make that toothbrush go away. While I'm here, let's just go ahead and go to polyframe. You can see here they're all basically each all one polygroup, which of course I don't want. So I'm going to auto group these. Control Shift click to isolate the gums. I hate when that happens. I hate the selection lasso doing that, but that's okay. So let's give them a color, kind of like a gummy color, something like that. I'm gonna go a little bit darker. Then Control Shift tap and drag, and for this, I'm gonna go here with kind of like this sickly yellow orange color, something like this. And we'll end up making these even more disgusting, obviously, because he does not have good hygiene. So we're going to fix that. But for now, I just want to put these where they need to be. I made them too small, I think. Perfect. Just kidding. Okay, let's put this where it needs to go. Alright, now let's go here and let's subdivide this. Control D, and now I'm going to go to my inflate brush and kind of puff them back up, because when you subdivide and they smooth, you know, they kind of go away, right? Subdivide again and again. I'm going to make these, I'm going to make the teeth anyway toy plastic, so they have a little bit of a shine to them. And now I do want this. I want these to be disgusting, right? So let's mask out the gums, and let's go ahead and go to my paintbrush, and I'm going to come up here to. I'm going to choose my mask by polygroups. So I'm just going to mask it up to 100%. That way I can paint one tooth at a time if I need to. Let's come in here and just, first of all, let's subdivide once or twice more. I want to have these be pretty dense and pretty. Pretty clean here as I kind of, you know, make them look disgusting. So I'm just going to kind of come in here and just really mess them up a little bit here. Again, I've masked my polygroup on, so I'm not going across teeth, which might be a better idea if I did, but I think I'm just going to stick with this for now. Go with a orangey color here and just kind of start messing this stuff up a little bit like this, and, you know, just get some, see how we're looking here. And now I think I need to go to my poly paint, Adjust colors. I think I need to turn down the intensity a little bit. I think there is too bright. There you go. Okay. Now we'll go a little bit darker. Get a little bit of that in there. Now I can turn my mask by poly group back down, so I can go across and just hit some of that. Okay, clear my mask. All right, so now we got that. Let's go back to the face. Go down to a slightly lower subdivision level here, and mask out, say the bottom lip, and let's just see about getting him some more growlies. I'm going to use the Geo Soft Form brush, which is an awesome brush, just to kind of block in the little sneer lines here. Hold down Alt and kind of get myself a little ridge around the nose. I'm going to turn lazy mouse, my lazy radius up a little bit for this brush, and I can kind of come in here and want to like get the brow a little bit more, get a little form soft going here to kind of pull out the brow a little bit. I can also do my J-cut brush and with Alt kind of refine the lip line here a touch. And I'm going to do the same kind of a thing here. I'll go back to my Geo brush and kind of try and get the eyelids. I'll hold down Alt and kind of pull out a little ridge here. Kind of be the ridge of the eyelid. I just want there to be a cleaner separation there. Okay. Now lightly, I'm just going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of this stuff. Same idea. Smaller brush, hold down Alt, and get a little ridge here for the eyelid. Now I'm kind of pushing in like on the other side of that to kind of give it a little bit more of an eyelid feel. And again, this is not what you'd call good facial sculpting or anatomy. This is quick facial sculpting. I don't know if it would be much better if I was slow, but we'll kind of get in there like that. Okay, just to kind of get that a little bit more, let's come in here, and I really want to kind of emphasize these almost unnaturally so. Now I'm smoothing this, but I have RGB turned off, so I'm not messing up my paint. So that's an important thing to remember, is that if you want to do a little smoothing, but you know, disrupt the paint job as little as possible, while holding down Shift, make sure that that you do that. I'm gonna do a kind of a similar thing here around the horn areas, just to give it a little indication that yeah, I didn't just drop them on, even though I did just drop them on. We all know that, we saw it. But I'm gonna come here and just give, using Form Soft, so I'm not really being overly like overt about this. I'm just giving it a little bump so that it looks like, okay, there's something below the surface there. It's not just taped on. And obviously these horns are not really painted yet either. We'll do a little bit of work on them moving forward, but mostly I'm just trying to get like the head in a place where I feel it's all right. Let's go here and go back to my Geo brush. I'll come in here and just kind of emphasize the jaw a little bit here. Because again, like I mean, I'm doing this kind of quickly, obviously, for the sake of the 2-hour thingy, and but just remember that when you like subdivide, for example, things get really soft, and if you're, you know, you don't want to forget that. You want to get in there and find all those areas that really need to be defined and define them. Otherwise, it's just going to look like it's made of marshmallow. So just, you know. Which is why, you know, generally, like, you know, it would have been better if I did a lot of this before I painted, but I really wanted to get that paint in there because I just needed to kind of feel like I knew who I was working with here. Let's just bring this up like this. Let's really get that here. Now, once I've done that, I need to go back to the teeth because now this feels way too pink for me. Feels a little better. And I can actually go to my paintbrush here with that same color and just set it to multiply my paint mode. Just kind of get a little bit darker in there. There you go. I think it feels a little bit better. Maybe not quite so much, just a little bit here and there. Go back to my regular paint mode, but I think that'll work better. And again, theoretically, you'd probably want this the face to be a little more squinty when he's you know, kind of sneering, because when you sneer, obviously, like you're scrunching your face, and that's going to affect, I think, the way your eyes look as well. So a little squint. Let me go back up there. And you can see here it's just gotten a little bit goofy. So do a little tweaking there, and again, just go back to my my geo brush and do a little tidying up. But I think we're all right. Want that brow to be really down there. Okay. All right. So now we got that. Let's see about the boots. All right. So the boots don't seem to be that complicated. They're actually pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and start making those as best I can. So we go to our boots here, and let's take a look at what we have to work with. So what I want to do really is start with the soles here. So I come underneath here. I'm going to just go to my Z Modeler brush, and I'm going to polygroup this poly loop here, and then isolate it like that. Get rid of all that stuff, and then I'll just Control Shift X to grow that, and that's going to be right here. Is going to be the sole. So Control W, and then get my Move tool and tap it right there. And I'm just going to, oops, don't do that. I'm going to reorient this and then just scale everything down like this. All right, so I want this to be nice and flat on the surface. That way we have a nice solid base to start with. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to polygroup my poly loop. Let's make sure that's all I have. Yep. Okay, Control Shift X right there, Control W, make it all, oh, not Control E, Control W, make my same idea here, right? So we're just going to scale that down into one clean bit of stuff there. You can see here it's a little bit narrower than everything else, so I'm going to kind of scale that out a little bit. And do the same thing over here, so Control Shift this here, and let's go here and just scale that out a little bit and just put that where it needs to be. All right, so now from underneath here, let's just, again, I want to kind of make this, I'm going to move infinite depth and just adjust the shape of the foot a little bit here. Let's go back to regular move when I start getting closer to the legs, because I don't want to mess up the legs. But just want to kind of get a little bit more of a boot shape to this. You can see how this gets a little bit goofy. I'm just going to go to my insert edge loop brush, delete that, and then just you know, add a couple more. Because whenever they get a little bit out of whack, sometimes it just makes more sense to delete them and then just draw them in again, and they'll come in basically as straight as they can. So now I've just masked out the top part of the leg here. That way I can do move infinite depth without having to worry too much about what's happening in that area, right? So just going to. It's funny how I have no idea what feet are supposed to look like. I probably should since I have them. But all right, so there we go. Now, going to add an edge loop here at the base. This is just to kind of retain that edge, if I smooth it. And now I'm going to create the soles straight from the boot. Sometimes I make them separate. This time I'm just going to throw caution to the wind here. I'm going to extrude the polygroup all. Give myself basically the sole right here. I'm going to make it a little bit longer than I think I need, and just because I'm going to end up putting the little separator in there in a second. I'm just going to tap to get the exact same amount. So now I'm just going to come here and grab this edge. I'm going to bevel it a little bit to get that little separator. Right, I'm going to do the same thing on this edge. The camera's acting a little bit goofy. There we go. Now I'm going to add an edge loop on the other side of that and at the base here, because again I want this to stay somewhat sharp when I subdivide this. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little edge loop here as well, and I'll do one on the other side of this as well. So basically I want to make sure that when I push that little poly loop in to give the appearance of that little separator, that I have some edge loops on either side that will kind of keep that edge. So now I'm going to extrude that poly group in a little bit like this. While I'm here, just add a couple edge loops inside there just to kind of, retain that. It is so hard for me to find where I'm working like this. All right, this is where symmetry would have helped. I'm just going to tap to extrude that in there again, the exact same amount. There we go. So now we have the soles. If I hit D, right, then we get the, we get the soles of the shoe. Let's go back to my infinite depth here and adjust this a little bit. Regular old move. I want to make sure that I do this from the right angles here, so everything makes sense. I'm going to call that okay. So now he's got these little pads in the front. These little kind of. So I'm just going to get my shape down the way I like it. So again, these boots here need to have a little bit more substance to them. Plus he does have calves, as far as I know. I want to make sure they are noticeable. So you can see here from the side we have them, but from the back, not a whole lot going on here in the calf region. So let's give these boots a little bit more of a widening toward the top. Right. And whatever I do with the boots, again, as long as I'm happy with the boots, I can make the pants adjust to that, right? So I just want to kind of make the boots have a little bit more. Let's go to solo mode so I can see what I'm doing. Have a little bit more to them. Okay, there you go. I think that makes more sense. And now I want to get those little. He's got like a little pad on the front that has a little V shape on it. So I have dynamic turned on, so I'm just going to duplicate this, and on the duplicate I'm going to turn dynamic off really fast so I can see what I'm working with, and I want to isolate these two pieces and then Control Shift X twice. So I want to grow this down because it kind of covers the front of the foot a little bit. So now I'm just going to delete hidden, and I can get rid of some of this stuff here. So I think here I'm going to go to my select lasso. I want to get rid of all this. I think basically the front 5 in this case are the thickness that I'm looking for. Let's just see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much what I want. Okay, so I'm going to keep that, delete hidden. I'm going to sew these two together really fast. So let's go to my Z modeler brush and stitch to endpoint. Boom, boom. Get my little move brush and just adjust that a touch. And we're going to do a similar thing here. So again, I just want to kind of see which ones I want. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's, in this case, I might I might want to keep the 6, but let's just see. So let's go to solo mode here. And nah, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to go with 5 and 5. It's okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting is hard. All right, so now I got that, and just got to my little stitchy thing here. That's delete hidden before I forget, and stitch this to the close point. Okay, and do a quick auto group. And this is really all I'm going for. And now I'm just going to extrude. This time I'm going to do all polygons. That way I can extrude them both at the same time. And again, they're a little bit more. There's a little bit more going on than this. But for the 2-hour Maul, I'm not going to get overly fussed about having it be, you know, screen ready. This is a block out. Okay, so something like that. And now I'm going to take a look at this polygroup here on the outside. Cool. All right, so I'm going to inset this. So I'm going to first, let's give ourselves a little edge loop here and here. I'm going to be a little concerned about the edge staying roughly in place. And it's also going to give me kind of an inner polygroup. So I Control Shift tap on here and then Control Shift S to shrink it. I'll get those edges to go away. Control W to make them their own polygroup here. And now I'm going to inset this entire polygroup legacy. So I'm going to kind of get that in like this to right about here. Okay. And now I'm going to do the same thing one more time. And it's going to give me this little edge right here. And now I'm going to inset one more time. And that's just going to give me basically an edge loop around that. I got my insert edge loop thing, kind of give myself one more there. Again, this is just to retain the edge. And now I'm going to grab this red polygroup and extrude that in. So extrude polygroup all. It's going to nudge that in a little bit. I'm going to add an edge loop in there so that, again, it doesn't get too soft. Now if I smooth this, you'll see I'm just basically getting that, right? That's really all I'm going for. Let's take a look at how that looks. So again, you can see he's got like these little parts on the outside there. And there's like a little V-shaped thing on there. So you can make that really quickly. Take Shift D to get out of that mode, whatever it's called. And let's just go to a topology brush really fast and see if this will work for us. Turn on my lazy mouse a little bit. And then just drag out a V shape. That's not a good V shape. And now I'm just going to go like this, and then go across like this. Is it perfect? No. Do I care? I mean, a little. I'm not gonna pretend I don't care, but I'm not going to lose much sleep over it. Okay, let's split unmask points. And let's go ahead and just nudge that in a little bit. And then we're just going to readjust here and then Control drag out a copy. Right. Slide it over a little bit until I get my Move Infinite Depth brush and just adjust this a little bit here. I want this to be a little bit more symmetrical. Okay, something like that. Let's go here and I'm going to isolate this just for a second. And again, I don't mind that this is a little bit goofy on the inside here, but if it does bother you a little bit, I'm going to Control Shift tap to isolate. Let's just isolate this polygroup here. So I'm going to isolate the polygroup by just hiding the back ones. Like this. Control W, delete hidden, and then I'll just extrude this polygroup in. Now, this is I extruded it in, so I have to flip it, right? Just keep that in mind. I'm gonna come here, insert a couple edge loops so that when I subdivide these, and I will, don't do that, then they won't get too mushy on the important corner parts. So basically I'm putting support edges at every like corner, because otherwise you would lose those corners. This is something that back when I did a lot of box modeling, this was just like you just went hog wild with the edge loops. But now if I smooth this, you'll see this is kind of what I got. That little edge, that kind of like that little the edge that causes that issue, that's an annoying thing that you can kind of get rid of. If I need to have that mask, that edge here to keep that, but this part I don't. So I can mask out that one little edge and go to slide edge loop, and then I can just slide this edge loop a little bit this way, like this. So now that goes away a little bit, not completely, but you know, similar idea. So I can do the same thing here. I can mask that part out and then just slide this edge loop over. Oops, I masked that part out too. Slide that edge loop over a little bit, just to kind of make it a little less noticeable. But again, I'm not going to worry too much about this. So let's get my color, throw that on there, and I can also just apply the dynamic and then just smooth that part out a little bit, right? Jeez, don't do that. Just smooth it, it's all good. All right, so is it beautiful? No. Do I care? Not much, a little bit, not gonna lie. Just gonna kind of move infinite depth and kind of adjust that shape a touch. All right, now let's go here, and I can't control drag out a copy if I have subdivision levels, so I'm just gonna get rid of those because there's only like 5,000 points, so I'm probably never going to need to worry about going down to the you know, the 400 point version of that. So this might not be a perfect fit, but I think we can, you know, we can live with it once we get it to where it needs to be. This is the exciting move the little V's around part that everyone's been talking about. No one will be seated during this part. Okay, so there we got that. Yep. All right, cool. So now we have that. Let's go back to the these guys, subdivide them a couple times just so it looks a little bit clean. All right, so now we have our boots blocked in roughly. We can do a couple more things here. There's a little bit more going on with the boots, but for the most part, we have something interesting going on in there now. All right, so now we can kind of like work on just doing a little bit of tweaking to the actual cloth of the arms and the hands and the pants, and then we'll make the lightsaber, and we'll be pretty good. Okay, so we're going to now work on just adding some stuff to the shirt and the pants, just kind of making it look a little bit better, and then I'm going to do lightsaber. So I already subdivided the hands and did a little bit of basic like smoothing out and sculpting because, you know, it's all the same. I'm going to go here to the torso. Subdivide this one more time. Now again, I'm going to go up here to my light box here. I'm going to go to my brush. I'm going to go to cloth. I'm going to use one of these magnet folds brushes here. They're really quite cool. They just, I think they're Pablo Munoz Gomez brushes here, and they kind of just get you a nice line here. And I give myself a little bit more points so I can see what I get. But really nice folds. They just do an awesome job of just getting that nice little kind of like collapsing material thing happening there. I love it. And again, I have all these different layers here, so I'm just going to kind of like be very quick about this because I don't want to get too stuck with this when I have a lightsaber to make. So I'm just going to kind of come in here and just, you know, come in here and just throw in some of these. Oops. Sorry, I hit my history slider and I got had to go back in time for a little bit there. So I'm just going to kind of come back and some really quick, oops, sorry, really quick little folds here and call it a day. And again, I'm being quick about it, obviously because we're on a schedule here, but take your time if you're doing stuff like this. I mean, you don't need to hear that from me, you know, but just saying. So let's go here, and I'm going to go to the this little overshirt here and do kind of a similar thing, right? So Magic Folds is awesome for this, especially because I kind of want to get this nice little these little vertical lines here, which kind of feel like that tunic that he has going on. So I'm just really going to kind of overdo it. Sometimes it's easy to overdo brushes like this, and I'm totally going to overdo this brush just because I really dig it and I'm okay with it. So there you go. Overdone. This little crisscrossy thing was not a good idea, but aside from that, I liked it. Okay, so let's kind of come in here, and probably not the best idea for this part here, but I'm going to see about doing it anyway, because again, I'm all about suggesting things and then doing the opposite today. And then go up here, there's another really cool brush called Pressure Size Folds. It's almost like a scribbling brush, I think. I'll put on back face masking and then just kind of make your brush a little bit smaller, and then come in here and just scribble back and forth and just kind of get some really cool basic foldy things happening here. Really great for that. I'm going to do a similar thing here for the pants. So I'm going to select the pants. I'm going to subdivide them quite a bit just so I don't have to worry too much about having to work around the low res here. And again, this is the Pressure Size Folds, and it's just kind of very, again, you can almost like just scribble with this. You can see by the alpha, it seems like it's kind of designed for almost like a spray. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to come in here and do a little bit of that. I'm going to go back to my Magic Folds brush too, but I'm just kind of like going around the parts where I imagine there's going to be some pressure folds, right? So like where it's bunched up. Go back to my Magic Folds, because who doesn't like Magic Folds? And again, I can't stress enough that this is a faster sculpt. You'd probably want to do a better job of actually like kind of thinking about where the folds are coming from and stuff. But for now, I think that this is going to do the job. All right, so now we have pretty much him blocked out, and then I'm going to do a little bit more work probably on the boots if there's time, but now I want to kind of work on the lightsaber. Now for the lightsaber, I'm going to make it in a separate tool here, that way I can keep it nice and centered, not have to worry about anything being in the way. So let's go here and just choose a cylinder 3D. I'm going to make it a lighter color here, and I'm going to make it polymesh 3D. And I'm going to swap it out right off the bat for a cylinder 3D that I have more control over. So I'm going to kind of crank up the lateral subdivisions here, and I want to give myself, I'm going to say vertically like maybe 6 rows here, okay? And I'm going to make it vertical here, hold down Shift, hold down Alt as I scale this in so I can kind of get the overall proportions that I want. And that's probably pretty close to what I'm going for. So there are, again, I'm not going to be overly crazy about getting this perfect, but I do want this to have some accuracy. So let's go ahead and first come up here and hold down Control and drag out a copy of this, swap this for another cylinder, and bring this up here, scale this down. So this is good because the top and the bottom each essentially have this tapered part. So I'm just going to go to my gear and go to taper, taper it into about there, get rid of that bend. There you go, like this. Accept. And I'm just going to hold down Control and drag this down here, hold down Shift and rotate it 90 degrees, 180 degrees I should say, not 90. And pop this right there at the bottom. All right. So now we got that. And again, we're going to do some more stuff. Let's do some extruding and all that kind of stuff. So the reason why I gave myself 6 here is because I'm looking at the lightsaber. It kind of has, it feels to me like roughly 6 separations and then a bunch of other stuff. So I'm just going to use that as a way of kind of give myself a guide here. So I'm going to go over this edge here. I'm going to go to Bevel, Edge Loop Complete, and just give myself a little bit of a bevel like that. Come down here and just bevel the same for all these. And again, these are going to be kind of like almost like cut lines in the lightsaber proper. So I'm going to go to my selection tool and just kind of get rid of everything but these guys. Control W, make them all one poly group. Now I can come in here and extrude those in a touch, right? So let's go extrude poly group all, extrude that in. And now I'm just going to really quickly, as quick as I can anyway, bevel the edges here on the side of either side of that. So just going to try and be really quick about this. Boom, boom. Come on now. Boom. There you go. And I think there's one down here I missed. Yeah. So I just want to have a little bevel around there so it's not too hard edged. All right. So we got that. Now he's got obviously a bunch of buttons, but he also has some more like indentations further down for some of these. Actually, they kind of come out. So let's take a look here. 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be in the middle here, right around here. This one. I'm going to give myself some extra edge loops here. So I'm going to insert multiple edge loops, keep poly group, and I'm going to give myself however many that is. I'm going to come down here and just come to the same version on the bottom here and just do that. So now there are about, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these guys that I want to extrude outward. So I'm going to hover over this and I'm going to extrude poly loop. And I'm going to make sure it's going left and right. And I'm going to extrude that out like this. I'm going to hover over this one, do the same thing, and the same thing, and the same thing. So 4. It's good enough, I think. Now again, remember, for the sake of the 2-hour Maul, I'm going quickly, much more quickly than I would if I were doing this for, you know, something fancy. Let's go here and bevel these up a little bit. So let's go here to bevel and bevel that edge. And now I'm just going to do all these. Okay, I just went and beveled them all. So now I'm just going to bring in, we have a couple of little like, almost like gasket looking things I'm going to just bring in. They just break it up a little bit. So I'm going to go really quickly and I'm just going to hold down Control, drag up a copy of this whole thing, and then swap this out for a ring. And let's go to my gizmo here and rotate it 90 degrees. Gonna give myself some more stuff, some more subdivisions, right? So I'm going to go here to subdivide 8, give myself about 32 or so. Make this a little bit nicer because I'm not really looking to do a whole lot of subdivision here. I mean, so yeah, if I can help it, I'm going to go to a dark gray, invert that. Go to a gray for now. So now I have just this little black gasket. I need to have a few of these, right? So I'm just going to bring this up. There's one gasket kind of like right at the base, I think, of this guy. And then there's a gasket right at the end of the little extrusions here. There's one right smack dab in the middle. Right about, actually I'm going to put, it's like, it's a little off here, kind of like right here. Actually, I think there's probably 2. I was going to do 2. Why not? Something like that. And I'm going to bring one here, and then one down here. So again, not an exact science, but there you go. Got little gaskets. And let's see what else we got. We have buttons, obviously. So we're going to get a couple of those on here. So let's go here to our insert primitive. Going to go to our insert cylinder. Gonna make it that reddish color because it's definitely a reddish color here. And let's go ahead, this is the front right here. And I'm gonna pop one right here. Actually, see if I can get this right in the middle. Okay. Bring it down to about there. A little further up. Take a look at what we got here. Let's give this a little bit of a rounded top. So let's come here and I'm gonna just get rid of this whole poly group here. Delete hidden. Now I'm gonna go to close, turn on double side so I can see this a little bit better. Let's go to close, convex hole, interactive curvature. So I'm gonna tap and drag down and then left and right to get a little bit of a curvature going on there. There you go. And something weird happened there, so I'm just gonna, there you go. And now I need to give it a little bevel. So I'm gonna go back to my bevel, a little bevel here. All right. And then I'm just gonna make that all one poly group, fill that. Okay, and then mask it, bring everything else back. No, don't mask it. What are you doing? There you go. And now I'm going to just slide this in a little bit more, and now I need to add these a couple more places, right? So I'm going to go here, control, drag to about there, control, drag to about there, control, drag to about there. Now we also need some silvery buttons. So I'm just going to control, drag up a copy to right about there, fill that with that. And now we're just going to do a little bit more of the same. So I'm going to bring this up right there. They're like on the inside here. Again, some of these you're not going to see. Most of these you probably aren't going to see. But that's okay. We want all the buttons that we see in the picture I'm looking at here. So we're going to go with that. All right. Let's give ourselves the actual. There's the actual little piece here. There's actual little kind of like ridges on the outside here. So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to come here and insert a cube. Going to go here to my polycube, which is obviously a more basic generic cube here, like that, 4 by 4 by 4, and we're just going to make this longer, scale it in a little bit, scale it in this way a little bit. I'm going to keep this roughly right here. I'm going to go to my Z modeler brush, go to insert, go back to single, and hold down Alt and just get rid of these. And I don't need these either. I want this to be very, very basic like this. I don't even need these right now. And what I want to do basically is just do a quick, just going to taper it a little bit like this, and then grab these points here and pull them out like this. So basically I'm just trying to make this a little less dull, like this, okay? And going to give myself a quick little bevel. So let's go to bevel as complete, put it there and there. So now I'm going to hit Control W, make it all one group. So now what I want to do is basically, actually I think I need to make this, yeah, I need to make this one go up a little bit higher, kind of like, oh jeepers, what the heck. Let's try this again. Yeah, something like this. Just gotta bring these guys down a little bit because it's just weird looking. All right, it's fine. So now I want these to go all the way around. Okay, I'm not really sure how many I want them there to be, so I'm going to do an array mesh. So I'm going to come down here to array mesh. I'm going to come over here and turn on array mesh. I'm going to turn on lock position and lock size because that seems to work better when I do that. I'm going to go to repeat, give myself maybe 10. I'm going to go to rotate around the Y 360. Now I'm going to go to my move tool W and just pull this out so it goes where it needs to go, like this. Bring it down. Pull this out. So again, you could also just use radial symmetry, but I like doing it this way because if I want to make some adjustments, I can do it really quickly and really easily, and it just updates for you, right? So I mean, it probably does the same thing there, but this is the way I'm doing it. So stop yelling at me. This is kind of what I want, like this. Make it a little bit longer. Okay, come down here and make mesh, and then I'm just going to go here and center it. Control, drag out a copy. 180 degrees, right, and pop it where it needs to go. Right about there. There you go. Success. So now we got our little guys here. I'm going to fill it with that color to make sure. I'm going to merge this down. All right. So now we just need to do a couple little switches here, but mostly just the actual lightsaber bases, right? So now it seems to me, in order for this to work, I probably need to make these guys a little bit taller. So let's go ahead and turn on symmetry. So I'm going to make it Y symmetry, and local sim is turned on, so I can work at both here. And I'm just going to come up here and just mask them out, bring everything else back, invert that mask, and then just elongate this a little bit here, like so. All right, cool. I'm going to do it down there as well. It kind of did. But let's just control click on this guy again, mask this part out, invert that mask. Actually, you know what? Shoot, turn off symmetry at this point. I want to just do it just one, because I think Didn't quite make it as long as it needed to be here. Maybe it was just a little bit off in terms of the positioning. So there you go. Fine. All right, now we just need to give ourselves a little cylinder here. Zoom in, right about there. And again, I'm going to go here to my regular move tool, swap it out for a cylinder. This is a little bit more high res. I want to knock down the number of subdivisions, something like 5 maybe, something like that. I'm going to crunch this down, widen it out a little bit. All right, so this is basically the thing that the blade comes from. And I'm just going to do a little bit of tweaking to this. I'm going to go here to my Z modeler brush, extrude that poly loop in, and do the same thing to this one. I'm going to do some beveling to make it a little more round feeling. I think I did something wrong there. There you go. All right, let's add some edge loops here just to kind of keep those edges a little bit sharper. I'm probably going to crease poly groups anyway, just because that will tend to do a better job of maintaining what I'm going for there. Let's just kind of make this a little bit taller. I'm going to crunch this in a little bit. All right, like this. I'm going to Control Shift Tap to grab these guys and go to a darker color and fill that. I want to have a darker color there. And then let's just go here and Control click and drag out a copy and pop this. Oh, autosave. Good timing. Like that. Okay. And why not come here? I'm going to go over this face. I'm going to poly group the flat island. So I'm going to grab this guy and make it its own group. And then insert. I probably didn't even need to do that. I could probably just do something like this. Isolate this poly group. Control Shift SS. Control W to make that its own poly group. And I'm just going to extrude this poly, not the loop for goodness sakes, the poly group. And this is basically just going to be, that's the thing that the thing comes out of. Technical term. Now I gotta do the same thing up top here because I didn't think enough to do it ahead of time. That's okay though. I'm just gonna insert an edge loop right about there. Control Shift. I'll just do an auto group. I'll just do it a different way this time because why not? There we go. And then boom. Nope. Boom. There you go. All right. Fantastic. So now we have our lightsaber. Again, there are a few more little cuts in there and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really going to get too crazy about doing every little cut because I think this is enough. Let's go ahead really fast and go here to, let's make this metal, right? So I'm going to grab this piece. Let's just do a, first of all, let's do a crease poly group. So I'm going to go here to geometry. I'm going to go to crease poly group. Go to crease poly group. I'm going to make sure the crease level is set to something like 2. Crease poly group. That way, when I go to D, it'll work okay. These guys are not loving the subdivision, so I'll just end up splitting those off before I subdivide them eventually. But now I'm going to auto group this so that I can just isolate this stuff that I want to make metal. Am I losing my mind here, or? That's interesting. For some reason I had a little polygroup issue, but now it's fine. I'm going to go here to my Z metal material. I'm going to get an M and fill that. Let's isolate these guys as well. Probably a faster way to do this. Actually, there definitely is. I'm just going to hide the gaskets, because the gaskets and the buttons are the only things I don't want to have be the same metal material. Okay, so for the gaskets here, I'm just going to go to basic material 2, which is kind of like a rubbery looking thing. I'm going to fill that. Let's go ahead and hide the gaskets. And now for the little buttons here, I'm just going to choose a different material. I'm going to choose something like a blend or something like that, just to kind of give it a slightly different material looking feel. Let's go to my material. modifiers, increase the diffuse a little bit, and then let's fill that material just to give it something a little bit different. Now I'll go back to my basic and bring everything else back. So there we go. Now we have our lightsaber, and we're going to bring that in to the other thing in a second. But we may as well put the blades in as well, just because, you know, that way we can just have them all in the same plane. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to add them as a separate piece for now. Let's bring in a cylinder, and I'm going to make this longish. Don't really know exactly how long I want this to be. It's not that long. It's not as long as what you're seeing here, I can tell you that right now. Let's say with something like this makes some sense maybe. And now I'm going to go here to my move tool. I'm going to go to my deformer hard. And I'm going to make the deformer only have 2 by 2 by 2. And I'm just going to mask out, well, 3 high is fine. I'm going to mask out this top part here, and oops. Okay, go back to my deformer. Invert my mask, and then just pull this down. So basically, we get that kind of like that sharp looking edge there. That's usually enough, in my opinion, to kind of sell the blade idea. Let's go to a bright color here. Let's go to something like sketch shaded, which is a nice kind of vibrant material. MRGB fill. And then I'll just grab this and pull out a copy here in 180 degrees. And then, you know, pop it right in there. There we go. So again, if we need to scale it down, we certainly will. I'll come up here and merge this, hit merge visible. That way I have a merged version, which is this little guy. Let's go back to our Darth Maul, and this is looking like it might be a little bit big. Let me bring it in. We'll have to see. So let's hit insert. Let's bring in our thing, or it could be incredibly small. I don't even know. I can't. There it is. There it is. All right. So we're going to bring this roughly to the size it needs to be. Pop it right here. And I'm going to have to triangulate this a little bit. What I don't want to do is change the orientation of the lightsaber in case I need to, like, you know, shorten the blades or what have you. I want to make sure that I'm in the same axis the whole time, right? So now I'm going to isolate these guys. I think this is a little bit too bright. Oh, let's make sure I have it set to RGB, not MRGB. Okay. Might slide this down a little bit like this here. I think the blades need to be longer now. So again, that's another reason why you want to make sure that you don't change the angle of the brush. I'm going to hold down Shift as I do this so I can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to go to 1.25 and then do the same thing here. So I know they're roughly the same length. I keep doing that. Okay. That feels a little bit better. Alright, so I think at this point, turn on perspective here, we got ourselves a pretty decent looking Darth Maul. Let's kind of give ourselves a quick render and see what it looks like. Okay, so here's our final render. We did a little bit of adjusting of the camera and so forth. Gave it a little bit of a filter to kind of make it look a little bit more ominous. But for the most part, I think we got the basics of him down. Played a little bit with modeling and some overlapping cloth and stuff like that. But for the most part, Darth Maul looks like Darth Maul. So happy May 4th.